Where do you think your party is effectively critiquing what Donald Trump's doing? Where do you think you're on the right side of the American people on how you're explaining what the Trump administration's doing?
Well, it could be the case that our success has more to do with Donald Trump's weakness than with our strength. But Donald Trump won largely on the strength of his credibility on the economy. I feel like the economy was the main reason we lost in 2024. And his tariff policy has become so unpopular that it's all but eroded his advantage on the issue of the economy. So, I suspect we're well positioned to win back the House in 2026 because of Donald Trump's loss of credibility on the economy. But I feel like we have to tread carefully. Pushing back against Donald Trump is necessary but insufficient. It's not enough to stand against Donald Trump. We have to stand for something. We have to put forward an affirmative vision that inspires the country, that moves the country forward. And so that's where we're lacking. Newt Gingrich in the 1990s had a contract with America. Maybe we should have our own contract with America. If Donald Trump has Project 2025, we should have Project 2029. I feel like we need a greater clarity of vision. Donald Trump has a genius for marketing. Like, he's the master of simple, repeatable messages. Make America great again, build the wall, America first. These are simple slogans that encapsulate his worldview. And it's fair to say that we lack the same simplicity and clarity of messaging. So that's where our energy should be focused, in my humble opinion.
What's an idea, a Ritchie Torres idea for Project 2029 on the economy? What's something you'd like to see your party talking about specifically to help working class voters on the economy?
We should focus like a laser on lowering the cost of living. I have a particular concern about the cost of housing, which is spiraling out of control. But I will say that I do feel like we have a more complicated task than the Republicans. So Donald Trump's main issue was border security. And our main issue is, or should be, affordability. To be blunt, it is much easier for the federal government to secure the border than it is to address the root causes of the affordability crisis. The border security is purely the domain of the federal government, whereas the affordability crisis implicates every level of government, right? Even if we were to invest more heavily in an issue like housing, there are state and local governments that have policies and practices in place that conspire against affordable housing development. So I do feel like our task is much more complicated than that of the Republicans.
I agree with you about that. And I say this with respect to you because you're a bright mind and a hard worker and think a lot about public policy. But your answer to me just now is the same as I get from almost every Democrat, which is we need ideas on affordability. Shouldn't there be some ideas, even just one on affordability that is rational, doable, appealing to the public?
So I have my own ideas. So one, I feel like, and this is about affordability, but this is about really the importance of work. Because for me, nothing is more corrosive to a society than the disappearance of work. We have tens of millions of Americans who are either structurally unemployed or unemployable, which leads to higher rates of mental illness and substance abuse and deaths of despair. I feel like we in America have to rethink the notion that everyone must go to a four-year college and learn Shakespeare and then enter the workforce. Instead of imposing a one-size-fits-all model on everyone, why not allow people the flexibility to choose the path that's right for them? Imagine if you could bring a Pell Grant not only to college education, but also career and technical education, to an apprenticeship. I feel like we should radically reimagine workforce development and higher education in America in order to create greater opportunity for those who have been left behind. And I do feel like that could be a vision that cuts across categories of race and class and all the rest.
So the specific idea is to take more money that's currently available for loans for people to go to four-year liberal arts colleges or traditional higher ed and put more of that money into training for people for other types of jobs. That's the idea?
Yes, I feel like we should be investing as heavily in apprenticeships, in career and technical education, as we do in traditional college education. And this is not theoretical. This has been successfully implemented in countries like Germany, And I feel like he would address the deeply ingrained crisis of structural unemployment that we're facing in America and that has left communities both in urban America and in rural America behind.